I have fond memories of volunteering at Wildwood every single Wednesday with my wellies on, jumping over the puddles, and getting whatever job needed to be done. It was always fun. I've always loved the place, the people, and what Wildwood stands for. And honestly, just to put it on record, they are doing a pretty good job. As part of the zoo series, I wanted to have Anna Thomas from Wildwood Trust Kent to be on the show. Anna is from the education department and she overlooks the general volunteers. And I've known Anna for quite a while. She's confidently one of the most enthusiastic and curiosity filled individual you could hope to be around. In this episode, we talk about Anna's journey, what Wildwood has been up to, particularly when it comes to education, species recovery, and obviously bison. You cannot really talk about Wildwood without mentioning them. And honestly, if you ever come out of Wildwood without hearing the word bison at least once, probably you took a wrong turn. It was a really fun conversation that brought back a lot of fond memories and also gave me plenty of things to learn and think about. I genuinely hope that you are able to take a thing or two as well from this conversation. And if you did, don't forget to give me some feedback in the comment section or in my DMs. Anywhere is perfect for me. But I genuinely hope you enjoy this conversation and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much, Anna, for doing this and taking out the time to do this. And I'm really glad to be back at the Bisons to volunteer. Really happy to be back. Do you want to start with introducing yourself to the world?
Okay, so I'm Anna and I work here at Wildwood. I work in the education department and I also oversee our regular general volunteers. I enjoy both parts of those jobs equally, I think, but education is really good fun.
That's lovely. So, the question I love to ask my guests is how they got into conservation, or in your case, wildlife education. What's the path that led you?
Well, I came in a bit of a, not actually an unusual way, but I didn't do anything academic, as you know. I started to volunteer myself here in 2022 and then kept sticking my nose in to what the education department was doing, because that's the department I started volunteering for. My boss is called Jamie, so I'd say to her, "What are you doing in that classroom there?" And she'd say, "Why?" And I said, "Because I'm nosy." So I started joining in some of the education sessions. Then bookings were coming in, things were getting busier. I'd done a few of them with her, and she said, "Do you think you'd be able to run one of these classes?" And I said, "Well, give me the script and I'll give it a go." So that's how I started. And then I started working 1 day a week after that, doing volunteering as well. So I do some of 0 hours contract in education, and I had 1 day a week with the volunteering to recruit more volunteers to the park. Met you. And then I went up to 2 days a week, and now I'm at 3 days a week, and one of those is full-time in education. So that's where we do the tours and the workshops and talks and anything else that needs to be done.
That's lovely. Before we get into a lot of wildlife education, and I really want to talk about a bit of reintroduction as well. Before that, you want to tell people about Wildwood and what does Wildwood in general stand for, because people in Canterbury or people in the UK would know, but people watching from any other country like India would not really know about what amazing work Wildwood does.
Right, so Wildwood, it started back in the 70s. I grew up in this area, so it started as a small woodland. Then it had a few sort of native animals. It became a little wildlife park called Brambles. Then in 1999, it was taken over to become Wildwood Discovery Park. So it was looking more at educating the local community about conservation and preservation of our woodlands and native species. In 2002, it became a registered charity of Wildwood, Wildwood Trust. Then in 2017, Paul Whitfield, our current Director General, took over. And basically since then, it's just been growing and growing. And the aim is to preserve, protect and conserve British native wildlife. And we work in conjunction with lots of other charities, charitable organisations to do rewilding projects. Here in the park, we are a native species park, so we only have, apart from a few exceptions like the wallabies and some of the reptiles, but very much predominantly a native species park of animals that either are here or were here. So we can educate people about how to look after what we've got, how to encourage the repopulation of some of the animals that we've got, and how to reintroduce animals that we've lost over a period of time, hundreds or thousands of years in some cases.
So, since you're from the education team, what do you think with the wildlife education done at Wildwood? What are we trying to get out to the people? What's our message to the people?
It is to be, I think, aware of your surroundings and aware of your impact on those surroundings as well, and what you can do to start to think about things about for the future, looking at what we've lost, the insects that we've lost, the small things to the big things, and just making people more aware of how they're impacting the world around them, and particularly locally in the UK. I think lots of people are very aware of sort of some of the big animals in Africa that are suffering and in danger, but I think sometimes in the UK we sort of forget about our equally as important small mammal, large mammal, insect, bird that are also really suffering from habitat loss and climate change. So that's the Wildwood, reason to educate people in the UK and around the world that it's all equally important.
That's beautiful. Like, to me, it seems like giving out a message to go out in your backyard and look at the animals that you have around you, and Wildwood does that really well.
Absolutely. We've recently started doing not from the education side, but more from my volunteer side, started doing conservation coffee mornings for members once a month here in the cafe, where we're doing exactly that. So trying to get people to come in. We have Ty coming from conservation, we've had Dog coming from conservation to just talk about small things that you can do, or talk about our larger projects, but actually how can we replicate those in smaller ways in our garden, because all of the gardens could make a massive impact. If we all change one thing in our garden, that can make a big impact on the wildlife and the flora and fauna around us in our local areas and in the UK generally. Because gardens take over a lot of the UK, basically. So that's a really important thing to be thinking about and looking at as well. So hopefully we'll support that as well.
So there's something that I'm always very curious about when I visit a zoo, because, for example, if I'm going to a school to talk to the children, I know the set of audience I'm dealing with. Or if I'm going to a conference, I know that most of the people would be from scientific background. So you know your audience. But when it comes to a zoo, there are a range of people that are coming. So how do you plan your educational activities to ensure inclusivity and have cater to people from all the ages and backgrounds? How does that work?
So obviously, so with the education team is quite diverse in itself. So you've got Jamie, who has a very scientific background, Juliet, who's also come from that background as well, Steve, who is just, I wouldn't even know how to describe him, he just knows what he doesn't know, it isn't worth knowing. You've got me, who has no scientific background, but just really enthusiastic and loves to talk to people. And we've recently got Oscar, who is studying at the moment, and he's working with us as well. So we've got this, so we have got a broad spectrum of people from different ways of getting to this position. And so therefore we can, for example, I did a talk at a WI the other day, so that was really good fun. We have different groups coming in the park. A lot of, the sort of more formal education that we do, we know who we're getting in. So it's going to be a school, it's going to be, we know the year, we know, so the age group, we know, so we can tailor the workshop for that group. And then if it's a mixed group, then generally it's people who want to know a bit more, and, the workshops will be tailored to the level of the sort of academic interest that is needed for that group. So sometimes the general, I'd like to do, or that it's best suited for me to do very much the general tours, or I do the younger school groups, but even with the older school groups as well sometimes. And then Jamie and Juliet will tend to do the grads and the post-grads because they have that scientific, that depth of knowledge, whereas I'm more a sort of a general overview of what's going on. So, and then I guess from that point of view, it's good for me because they're not going to ask me too many questions that I don't know, and also I'm not going to overwhelm them with lots of information that wouldn't go in. Whereas and I think that picking out sort of the small but what important points that people can take home with them and sort of stick with them, and looking at it from that interest point of view as opposed from a study and academic level. So I think having that balance works really well in our team.
That's lovely. But so, for example, let's narrow down the question. If I was dealing with a group of students, right, and I know that the age of them, I know which school they come from, what background they have, and I have a idea of what I want to educate them about. and I was on the education team. So what goes behind planning an educational activity for the children? How do you cater to, like, okay, for this age group, this is what the educational activity will, this is what we're talking
Right.
about. So how does that work?
Yeah, so we look at the education, the keystones, not keystone, the key stages.
Yeah.
So workshops will be tailored to those key stages. So so the years 1 and 2, 3 and 4. So it would be set to that level. So that would be obviously something that Jamie would do.
Yeah.
And Juliet, they would sort of make sure that workshop covers the areas in that key stage that need to be covered for that particular subject area. So, if we do on a rainforest, for example, they will go and do the research to find out, right, what are the specific things that need to be covered in this workshop to meet the requirements of that key stage. And obviously going up. Obviously, we do bespoke ones as well. So if there's a university coming in, for example, then often, Jamie will liaise with the tutor to start with to say what areas do you want to cover, what's important, what do you want to focus on, and then it can be a bespoke, tailored workshop for that particular group. But it is sort of in conjunction with the national curriculum key stages as to how we pitch and what we include in each of those workshops. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And okay, another question. I don't know how to frame it, but so I had a podcast with this guy known as Jack Baker. Shout out to him. He's from Edinburgh. He's doing his PhD, and he does amazing work in education. He's also podcasting himself. So you're talking about how when it comes to measuring the impact of education, we can't really do that because it's a qualitative aspect, and we don't know what someone who learned something from us, like how well would they remember it, how would they utilize it. But when you're dealing at a zoo level, you would want to know what your visitors are learning and how did they spend their time at the zoo. So when it comes to measuring or understanding the impact Wildwood is creating on the visitors, how do you do that? Like, do you talk to people, or is there like data you collect? You talk to them. Like, how does it work?
As far as I'm aware, I don't think we actually collect data from sort of the general park visitor.
Yeah.
But that overlaps nicely with sort of the volunteering side that I do, because probably the volunteers have as much engagement with the people that are walking around the park as the education team itself.
Yeah.
Because as you know, the education team, it's booking, so people come in. So we, like I said, know what they're coming in for. We tailor the workshop to that level, to their requirements. But for sort of more general, sort of getting the messages out there and educating the general public, that is something like with the conservation coffee morning. So we're trying to build those up so we can. That's going to be a really good way to gauge people's interest and engagement. If people come back to that, if people want to learn more about it, which we are seeing. We also, another thing that we're doing is the Wildwood Walkers, which is a walking group around the park. That's another really nice way to see how people want to come and engage and enjoy the park throughout the seasons. And it gives me a chance as I'm walking around to talk to people. So I think generally, I would say that we've seen people are coming to the, as a charity, that's been something that we've tried to do as well, because initially it was very much a wildlife park and it was for families, and people would come and wander around the park, see something or see nothing because of our very natural closures, and then come to the cafe, sit here, have a coffee, and the kids go play at the play park. And that is something that we really need to, that we've been very much trying to put on its head a bit and make it people realise that actually we are a conservation charity. What you do as a member isn't just have the benefits of a fabulous park to come and enjoy, but you have you're supporting all of the conservation projects, the rewilding, all of that behind the scenes stuff that is so obvious. And I think that's something that, as in my role as a volunteer supervisor, I want volunteers to understand so they can impart that information so it does get out there more. I don't, like I said, I'm not aware of it being quantified at the moment in any particular measures, but generally my feeling walking around the park is that people are more engaged, are more interested, do want to know more about those things. We've been really lucky as well in the press coverage that we've had with Boki the bear when he had his brain surgery, obviously the Wildwood with the bison, and also locally with the Chuff project. So, the World of Lean and Boki was much more national, and I think the Chuffs are a bit more local. But we've had really good support from local media, social media, and was from the press to come in and report on those projects. So that's getting out there. So, I do when I'm out and about in the community, get people asking me about those things. So that's really pleasing to see that is the word is getting out there that Wildwood is not a zoo. It is a conservation charity that has a fabulous wildlife park to go along with it. So you get lots of membership, basically.
I do have a question to it, but I did want to mention one thing about Boki. So there was one of the days where I was leaving after volunteering, and a random bus driver, he was just going from there. He was like, "Oh, do you work here?" I was like, "No, I just come here to volunteer." He was like, "How's Boki doing? Is he fine?" I was like, "Yeah, he's doing good."
Yeah.
Good to know that you know about him.
Absolutely. And
lovely.
that's, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like any publicity is good publicity, essentially.
Yeah.
So that really shone a light on the charity as well. So although it was very focused on Boki and his, amazing surgery, it again highlights the park. And I think, with these days, it's so easy to go and research something yourself. So you hear something on the news, you instantly get up to Google or whatever your search engine is to find out, oh, well, what is that then? Where is that? And I think, those things have created a lot of interest in what we do. And then once you're in here, then people can speak. Like I say, that's important to me to get those other messages out there. So having people walking around the park to engage, to try and communicate that. And, I certainly do. When I talk to people, really good question I had after a night tour one day, and it was a couple who moved here recently, and they said, "Oh, well, when's the best time to visit the park?" And I said, "Well, you've asked the wrong person because I'm biased, because I think you should visit all the time." I said, "But you see all the different seasons," and I said, and underneath that, you're supporting this amazing conservation charity. So I think people are becoming more aware of that. And I think, looking at zoos generally, people are becoming much more aware and concerned about the welfare of animals within zoos. So if you throw conservation in on top of that, then you've got like a super zoo, if you like, because we're doing both. And most zoos these days have an element of conservation within there, of reintroduction, of species protection, and all those sort of things as well, because that's important, and that's sort of filtering through to people for that to be important to them as well. So I think that's a really good way to be sort of sending out those messages alongside people getting enjoyment out of a place, an area to visit as well.
Quickly going back to about measuring the impact. I'm not sure how it works or how zoos do it in general, but do you think looking at the number of visitors coming to the zoo, an increase in that, or maybe an increase in the people who are coming for the events you have been organizing, or people coming for the conservation morning? So do you think an increase in the number of people does show an impact being created on them? Do you think that's one of the factors that can be looked at when measuring impact?
Yeah, I think so. Because like our night tours, for example, are always really well attended, and it's a nice experience. It's a lovely gift. You come in a restaurant, in a cafe, and you have dinner before, and then we take you on it's limited to a certain amount of people, so you do get a really sort of intimate experience of the zoo at a different time of day, which is lovely. But again, interestingly, the conversations or the questions that we get asked when we're doing those tours are really, they're thoughtful, and they're curious, not just about the animals, but about what we do in general as well. So that's, you definitely seeing people more aware and more curious about how they improve on how they're living. So I think that's a really positive thing. Again, I don't know if it's something that we've actually gauged ourselves, that we've done any particular studies, but it's an interesting one. It might be a little project that I could get the volunteers to do, to sort of have a questionnaire as well, to engage people and find out what they're getting from it, and why they've come here in the first place. But I think you have to be a bit careful of that, because you don't want to impact people's enjoyment. But it's something to think about. Yeah, it's really cool.
Also, so you have been working with Wildwood for a while in volunteering capacity, and now, what do you think, when it comes to educational strategies and dealing with people, has changed with Wildwood? How has the way Wildwood approaches education changed over the years with the change in time, change in people on this?
So as I was saying to you earlier, so our education, as in sort of the formal education, if you like, so the different schools and the universities and colleges, that has just gone up and up and up, and there's been sort of a restructure of the education team and and the programs and everything, which has been brilliant, and it's obviously proven to be successful because we don't advertise it anymore, but we're getting busier and busier, so word of mouth is being spread. And just sort of on that point, from the formal point of view, I think that's so important that children get to come in, especially the younger ones coming to the park. It's not in a classroom situation. It's much more impactful, I think, for them to sort of do an interactive workshop with us and then be in the park and look at that sort of thing. So going into the future, they're more aware of the impacts that can be had. I think for when you think about, like, we do more night tours, so that's again sort of educating and people being interested and the uptake of that being increased, and that has increased. We could do more, but we don't have the staff to do more, unfortunately. But those sort of things, I think, would indicate that people are interested and they are taking things away from the tours, because we do talk about conservation when we do the tours about how the otters were impacted with the pesticide, beavers, all, we talk about those different aspects within the tour, so they are getting more information about what not just what we're doing, but why things have happened and why things have gone into decline, and then they can think about that and take that away with them as well. So I think, the more we could do, the better it would be, but then we've got the talent, staff and the finances to do all those things. But I think that's definitely something that's that has shown people are interested and want to know more and want to learn more, and they also going to tell my friends as well, which is what we want, that sort of community spreading of information around the place, which is really good.
Do you accompany visitors when they come for the night tours? Are you there?
Yes, yeah. So they have the meal in here, then we all meet outside, and then there'll be usually 3 or 4 members of staff, 2 doing the tour, so we take it in turns. And then we have we have a keeper with us as well, to sort of just make sure we've got enough people. It's a group of about 30, so just to make sure that we're ushering around the park safely, because it's obviously dark quite sometimes. They give them red light torches, so they recount the animals. Often the wolves howl, which is just spectacular. So it's a really lovely experience, and it is a very, and like I said, intimate tour. So we do walk around with them. We don't stop at every single animal, but we stop at usually we stop at the most of the animals, and take questions and give them information about them. So it's a lovely experience.
I'm just curious, like, what's the age group of people who are attending these night tours?
So they have to be over 12, but other than that, it's really across the board. So we do a Valentine's one. That's our first one of the year. So that can be a bit young, but actually it isn't, because it's anyone who is interested in conservation, and I think Wildwood has done a good job of changing that perception. So lots of people do come to support us because of the conservation work we're doing. So anyone who's interested in animals, wildlife conservation, that's a great Valentine's gift for somebody. So that one's always booked out. So you just get across the board, from children or sort of like young adults that are really curious with their parents, to couples on dates, to members who want to come and have that experience. And people who've heard about it from friends. So it really is a very broad group of people, I would say. So
That's lovely.
It is really lovely.
What about the Valentine's? Did a lot of people come for that?
Yeah, it's always fully booked.
Was it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How did that go?
I did it last year. I'm missing it this year because I'm fortunately, sadly, at a wedding in Scotland, so I can't do it this year. But it's really well received, and we with that one we do tailor it slightly for sort of the mating rituals of some of the animals as well. So we make it a bit more
that's
about Valentine's. So that's another way of really getting people engaged and making it a bit more sort of fun. So we literally whoever's doing the tour, we will do the white stork mating ritual. So we will act that out, which is quite fun. Gets everyone off to sort of a relaxed feeling, because that's the first stop on the tour. So
that's lovely.
Yeah.
Coming back to education. So, since you have been here for a while again,
if you had to change one thing or improve one thing in your capacity when it comes to educational activities or approaching education from a charity perspective by Wildwood, what would you improve or change?
I think so. What I haven't mentioned actually is that we also do weekend courses which are run by Kent Mammal Trust, Kent Mammal Group, and we're doing one on pine martens in conjunction with Kent Wildlife Trust. So we do those as well, which also get well supported. You know, it's resources and it's manpower, and the more of that we could have, then the more we could do. But it is resources because we only have the one classroom. So if we're doing it in classroom, because I mean that would be a lovely thing to do, where you could sort of give people a talk inside and then do a tour around. You know, there's so much capacity to do things like that, and that be for the general public. But then you're limited to weekends as well. Again, that's why, you know, I've started, like I said, not so much on the education side, but with the volunteers, getting those sort of just small bits of education out there with the coffee mornings and with the walkers, because that doesn't cost anything. It's for members, not for members only, but it sort of encourages membership, so it encourages people to come in, which encourages support of the charity. So it all works of itself. But I think that would be the main thing, is if we have more resources, more space to be able to have groups where we could do those things. You know, if we had more staff, we could do more night tours. So I think that's probably the main inhibitor. Is, for example, down in Devon, I haven't been down to our Devon Park, shame to say, I will do, but they've got a Saxon village, so they have an open space, so it's easier for them in a way to do some more group activities, because they've got a space where they can house them and put things on, whereas because we are in the middle of this fabulous woodland, it's obviously limited on where we can house people. You know, in the summer holidays, or in the holidays, for example, that you were here in the holidays, it's quite hectic, so we couldn't take over the cafe like we have today, because it would just be heaving, and you know, you've always got to trade off the profits of a side of a business versus the sort of the activities that you offer, so that's a balance as well. So, you know, I think if we had more educational space and then more educational staff, but then having said that, everyone in the park is educating people all the time, so we're restrained by being a charity as well, as you know, well, I mean, most places are low financially, so it's getting those priorities. So, you know, with all the money and all the resources, it would be fabulous to be able to almost do some kind of educational thing every single day to draw people in, but that's not realistic or practical, because sometimes you might only get one or two people, and if you've laid on a lot of resources for a workshop, then that's not going to work. But I think, you know, we do well with the collaborations as well, like I said, with Kent Wildlife Trust and the Kent Mammal Group. So, you know, bringing those groups in as well, again, it sort of spreads that little net a little bit wider all the time. So just common restraints of resources and finances is probably the main
that's true
issue.
for conservation every single time.
Absolutely, yeah.
It is. Another question I had. This is a very selfish question, because I wanted to know, because if I was someone who wanted to be good at wildlife education and being relatable to people, because you talk to a lot of people every single day, including the volunteers, what do you think are the skills I need to work upon to have a good way with people and to educate them and relate to them well?
I think it's that. I think you have it already, to be honest. It is that, you know, I can't walk around the park without talking to somebody. I like talking to people. You like talking to people. You're the same. And I think that's, you know, that being sort of approachable and not preaching, but just sort of like saying, just, you know, start off by, you know, within this environment, I can walk around, and a common one for me that always makes me laugh is the wallabies that like to lay right at the front of the enclosure, and everyone's looking into the distance and just walking past and going, oh, you just look down there. And that engages people to start with. You know, I'm thinking about sort of like Hamza as well, you know, it's that sort of, that passion and interest that shines through. And I've been told that myself when I go and do talks. It's like, you know, you just love what you do, don't you? You're just so passionate, so interested in it. And I think that's what, and then for you sort of, you know, I wouldn't have got, if I'd have applied for this job on paper, I'd have been in the bin. It's like, what is she doing? But because I decided, you know, I'd volunteered in many different places for, mainly with animal charities, dog charities, animal rescues, and I just decided I wanted to change. I wanted to know more about, well, what can we do to make the world a bit better? What can I do? Why is it important as well? I mean, I know it's important, but actually, why is it important? And you know, I've got so much more understanding and knowledge than I had 4 years ago now, and it's still really exciting for me. So I think sort of getting into those places to be available to people that can employ you to do that, or just sort of like you're doing now with these podcasts, engaging with people and sharing your passion and your enthusiasm, I think is really the best way. You know, the best educators are people that are interesting. They're not sitting there reciting from a book. It's like, oh, this happened, and you know, it's what I've found really lovely is even with some of the small children, you know, when I've done a workshop, they come up and give you a hug and go, thank you, and you're just like, oh my God, that's so sweet. I was having fun, and you know, Jamie says to me sometimes, how did that go? I'm like, well, I had a great time. I hope they enjoyed it too, but I had a great time. So I think that, again, that is sort of enthusiasm, and you know, we were talking about this the other day when I was talking to the volunteers about, you know, engaging with people, sort of doing it at their level as well, so you're not bamboozling them, you're not sort of boring them or holding them for too long, but just giving them a few little bits to think about. I think that's really good. And then obviously, you know, you are far more academic than I am, so you know, you can go into those sort of deeper conversations with people, but there's a difference between an academic that just spouts out facts and an academic that's passionate and curious and interested about their subject. So I think that would be the best advice I could give you.
That's really good advice, by the way. Moving on, since storytelling is a very important aspect of wildlife education, do you want to tell people about the story of Boki? That's the most famous story, I feel.
It is, our little Boki. So he arrived, when was it now? In January, it'll be 3 years ago, so January 2023. And he was, Fluff and Scruff were in torpor when he arrived, and he was put in an enclosure right beside them. And then as he was started to show curiosity along that line of that fence line, and then as Fluff and Scruff woke up, the keepers very carefully and very cautiously introduced him to Fluff and Scruff, and they got on famously. Well, him and Scruff got on famously. He annoyed Fluff quite a lot. And he was just like an annoying teenager. And then so that was in 2023, so it was 2024, in the April, everything had been fine, and the park was open, and Boki had a seizure in front of the public. So our keeper team, who are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, rushed into action. They managed to get Fluff and Scruff back into their enclosure to obviously mitigate any further issues, and then managed to get Boki back into his enclosure. He was medicated. We called the vet out, obviously. He was medicated, given a course of steroids to see if that helped, which it did initially, but then he was having more and more seizures, so he was kept separate from Fluff and Scruff, obviously. Then in the October, through lots of liaising, we managed to get him booked in with Noel Fitzpatrick down in Surrey to have an MRI scan. So early one morning, the keeper team and our previous zoological director, who's just left, gone over to Durham. Him and the team got Boki sedated and onto a truck and transported all the way down to Surrey for an MRI scan. So that came back in a few days, and it turned out that he had hydrocephalus, which is the fluid on the brain, which was causing the seizures. And at that point, he was getting big enough where he could be going into torpor, and that was obviously a big concern, because if he was in torpor, he wouldn't be able to be medicated anyway, because he's medicated through jam, like drugs and jam, essentially. So that wouldn't be a possibility to be able to do that. So it was very dangerous. So after lots of conversations and working out the best course of action, it was decided to do the surgery. So later in October, actually sort of September, he had the MRI scan. In October, we had Roman PZ come to the park. He's a vet up in Scotland. He's the only vet who'd ever done brain surgery on a bear before, and that was previously a black bear in Laos in the rainy season. So not great conditions, but he still did it, and that bear went on to live for at least another 5 years, so it was successful. So he very kindly donated his services free of charge to us, and it was done here in the park. It was absolutely fascinating. It was, you know, I mean, my job here, like saying to you before, this is like my dream job, and I didn't even know it was a job, and it's a dream. And then when the operation was happening, Mark came on the radio to us and said, you know, if anybody wants to come and see what's going on, come up. And I was like, oh,
let's go.
I was like, oh, do I want to see that? And it was like, when am I ever going to see a bear having brain surgery? Never. So off I went. And just the stillness and the peace and the professionalism of what was going on was just amazing, just so inspiring. So 5.5 hours later, one shaved bear, having a hole drilled into his skull to put a tube in that went all the way down to his stomach to drain the fluids. He was brought round, put into his enclosure, or brought into his enclosure, then brought round. And within the next day, he was up. He was very dozy, but he was up, and just his recovery has been amazing. He's done so well. So it was really groundbreaking surgery, and it was a privilege to be there and see some of it, and for it to be done in the park was just, you know, absolutely incredible. So he's done really, really well, and touch wood, he's still doing absolutely brilliant. Exactly. So he's in torpor at the moment, so he's having a nice snooze along with Fluff and Scruff. And just out of interest, that Fluff and Scruff always sleep together. So at the end of every day they have an enclosure where they go to bed. They've always been together. And Boki has his own side as well, and they're very happy with that arrangement, and they have all day to play together. So he's been out and about last summer, just up to his usual antics, up the trees, in the pond, annoying Fluff and Scruff. So it's been incredible. It was interesting when he came out of torpor. I think he'd lost about 30 kilos, so he was really skinny, and he was still quite shaved, so you could see how skinny he was. But now he's, you know, by the end of the summer, he'd got all his full fur back, and he was back to being the fabulous, cheeky young bear that we know and love. So phenomenal.
What's the name of the problem he had again?
Hydrocephalus.
Is that something that humans can get as well?
Humans can get it, and we had a couple of young children who had hydrocephalus who came and met Boki afterwards as well. And apparently it's not common, but it is, large dog breeds are susceptible to it as well. So like Irish wolfhounds, deerhounds, I think Great Danes as well, but some of the large dog breeds can be prone to it as well. So it's, you know, so vets do that operation on dogs as well, but not so much on bears.
Because I know that because the driver I was mentioning earlier, he said that he had the same problem. And I was thinking, wow, like, that's such a weird thing to make it so relatable to an animal, and him to care about the animal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's crazy.
I know, it was. I was doing a tour one day, and one of the children came up to me and said, I've had that too. And I was like, oh wow, that's really cool, you know. And so it was the same operation, but just on a slightly larger scale with a bear. So, but it's amazing. And it goes to show, you know, medicine is across the board, basically. You know, humans and animals suffer from lots of similar afflictions. And, you know, I know that, again, Noel Fitzpatrick is looking at sort of how that can be integrated, which is a really interesting, not integrated as such, but, you know, learning from both sides, from human and animal medicine to create a greater understanding of illnesses and disease.
It sounds really interesting.
He's got a charity called Humanimal, which I follow.
Should have him on the podcast. That's a really interesting
Oh
thing
my God,
to
you should.
talk about.
Absolutely, it's fascinating because it is, you know, he's done so much work obviously creating body parts for, you know, limbs and replacement, replacement limbs and
for animals.
Joints for animals.
Oh.
So, you know, the super vet. So so it's, and like I said, I've sort of followed the Humanimal charity that he does as well to sort of bring those two together, because it's just fascinating.
That's true. Also, so shifting a focus from education to reintroductions a bit. That's something that's talked about a lot, especially with the Lynx reintroduction. That's something we'll talk about as well. But firstly, if you're just talking about reintroduction, because though I've met a lot of people who are in favor of it and they do talk a lot about it, but there are people who just straight up disagree with the concept of reintroductions because they're like, whatever has happened, there's no need to spend money there and all these things. But so again, you talk to a lot of people. What do you think is the general notion in the community around Canterbury or in Canterbury about reintroductions?
That's a really interesting one because obviously the bison cut through Blean Woods. There's a really lovely little brewery in Blean Woods. And some of the comments that I got were from people going, well, I'm not going to be able to get to the brewery now on my normal route. It's like, okay, so you're saving the world, getting to your beer, don't worry about it. So it is, what it is again, it's about, like I was saying to you before, about why do we need to do this? Why do we need bison?
Yeah.
You know, getting people to understand and think about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a friend who likes to cycle in Blean Woods and he was a bit grumpy about it. So I was like, right, sit down, let's have a word.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what it's not the animal that we've lost, it's everything around it that's been lost. And by bringing that one thing back, then we're protecting ourselves from a worse fate. So that's it. So generally when you sort of speak to people and you sort of explain that, like I said, I'm a simpleton, so I need it in simple terms. So it has to be that sort of, that basic. It's like, well, you know, if you've taken that out, then, and a really good one that I like to talk to people of my age particularly is talking about the amount of flies we've lost. So when I was growing up, you went out in the car in the summer, your windscreen was covered in flies, dead flies, and they would cake on and they were a devil to get off. And, you know, you'd earn your pocket money by going and cleaning the windscreen in the car and scrubbing the number plate because it was so covered in flies. I don't have to do that anymore. And it's not really till I started working here that that sort of came back to me. And it was like, but if we've lost all those, what else have we lost? We know that the birds are depleting. We know that all these animals are in decline. Is that healthy for us? Because if they're in decline, then that's obviously, animals went into decline for reasons. You know, pollution, loss of habitat, changing in farming practices has been a big one in the UK, generally over hundreds of years. But it's important to bring those animals back, not because we need a bison, but because we need all the other animals and the diversity, the eco-diversity of what that animal brings to the woodland and to well, it's, you know, I lived in Texas for 6 years. Sorry, Texas. It's hot there and it's bare and it wasn't for me. And I also lived in Seattle for 6 months, which is beautiful. You've got the sea, you've got the mountains, it's lush, it's green. And that gave me a really interesting sort of viewpoint on what, I mean, Texas is like that anyway because it's hot, it's flat anyway, but I think that, you know, people driving around in big cars and fuel economy or, you know, wasn't something they really talked about because it's not, certainly Dallas area where I was, it's not very pretty. So what does it matter if there's not a tree there? We've got a mall there that's air conditioned and that's really convenient. And up in Seattle, it does matter if there's a tree there because it's beautiful and you've got snow-capped mountains and you see the snow reducing. So I think when you can see the impact, then you're aware of it. Whereas if you don't see it, then you're not aware of it. So you might live in one place where you're talking about the loss of a snow-capped mountain. You're like, oh, that's a shame, but what does it matter? But that's going to impact you because it's going to be getting hotter and hotter where you are to a point where it's going to become unpleasant to live, or, you know, you can't live there. And then we've got less space in the world to live, and we're making people's lives, you know, often in countries that aren't as wealthy, their life's so much more difficult. And it's so what's important, so it might just be a bison in the woods here, but actually the implications of that making our environment better, combating climate change by getting that biodiversity, being resilient to those changes, is what's important. And so talking to people about that when they're like, oh, but I don't really want, I can't get to my pub anymore. It's like, well, do you know what? Take a slightly longer route, you get more exercise, you'll be even fitter. It's all good. Everything. Put a positive spin on it as well. You know? And again, if you're sort of, you know, if you're just going, yeah, it's a bit inconvenient, and then don't engage with them, then that's not going to help. But sort of sitting there and having those conversations with people, which is again is a thing I love to do. They're like, oh, yeah, I hadn't really thought about it like that, and that's the problem. People don't think about it. Everyone looks at how things are negatively impacting them on a very direct level, and a bit grumpy about it. But sit down and have a humorous conversation with them, and they're like, oh, actually, that's okay, I can manage that now. I can manage that extra half a mile or the extra mile. And obviously they're building the bridges in the Bleen now as well, so it creates more, you can get across the Bleen easier. But also, who doesn't want to see a bison? They're so cool.
But I had a question, like, if I was to think from a common person perspective, who's not into conservation, does not understand reintroductions at all. So in my head, I would be like, I've spent 50-60 years of my life not seeing a bison, so I don't know bisons existed and what kind of impact they had on nature. And if I was to think from a very not so conservationist mind, I would think like bisons used to exist long time back. So in my head, I would think nature is quite resilient. Hasn't it found other ways to accommodate for what role bisons used to play in the ecosystem? So why do we need bisons anymore?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because there isn't anything that's replaced the bison in the UK.
Interesting.
So obviously they haven't been here for thousands of years either, but you've got your grazing cattle and you've got large animals, that they still don't do the same as a bison. So what they can do in a period of time is much more impactful than a Highland cow could do, for example. So that's why, and it is a study. So it's not saying, right, let's bring bison back to the UK. We're going to have loads of them around all over the place. It's a study to see what that impact is. Is it something that's valuable to do? And I try to sort of, I think it's fabulous, obviously, but I try to sort of like put it to them that, like, aren't we lucky that this is on our doorstep and we're having this experience and being able to see the impact. And you can go read on it on our website and find out what's going on. There's the blogs, there's all the information. Don, who is our bison ranger, I mean, my God, he breaks your heart when you read what he said about when the matriarch died. It makes me cry every time. And to have that on your doorstep, you're lucky to have that on your doorstep. Look, it's just sort of like, and talking like, say, to people of sort of my age or whatever, talking about, well, yeah, but think about those flies. Okay, it's more convenient that we don't have to scrub the number plates anymore, but shouldn't that still be the case? Shouldn't we still have those, really? Because wasn't the environment healthier then? Weren't we healthier then? Water voles is another one. I know we're going to get onto that, but I grew up around here. I used to go down to Fordwich, walk along the Stour with the dog, and you'd hear plop, plop, plop. And I didn't really realise that had gone until I was here, and it was like, oh my God, no, you don't hear that anymore. So I think sort of the people of sort of a bit older generation, again, that's again what's lovely about our education team, that we've got this like quite broad age spectrum as well. If I'm talking to somebody of my generation, I'm like, oh God, yeah, we did, didn't we? And I'm like, so are we happy that that's gone? Or do you think that would be nice to have them here? And we know that all the species are being depleted. So what are we going to have, what's going to happen? What would you want your children, your grandchildren to be living in? Do you want birds flying in the sky and nesting in your trees and coming to your garden and enjoying that? Or would you rather we had nothing? So just, that's a bit dramatic almost, but it's if we don't change things, we don't make allowances, we don't reintroduce things, then potentially that's what could happen. We'd be in a very boring, barren landscape, and everything would be, and what's that mean for our farming practices? What's that mean for our food? Where's the food going to come from if we haven't got the insects to pollinate? So, just sort of looking at a very, like I said, I look at it very sort of like, not a deep dive into it. It's very much just sort of like this umbrella of like, well, if we've lost that, what else have we lost that we haven't realised, and what does that impact have? And I might not know the answer to that, but there's somebody who will be. So if you want to know, go and find somebody. But I know that I don't want to lose any more than we've lost already. So if we can start to bring things back, then that's good enough for me, essentially. So, and like I say, you know, if somebody does want to go and start it, there's so much out there that you can go and find out. So, but just like, even if it's just one mind that you change to think, actually, yeah, it's okay for me to go for an extra mile round to get to my bar, and it's worth it, and I'm going to go and read about this, and I'll become a member of, you know, of Wildwood, I'll become a member of Kent Wildlife Trust, I'll look at, you know, the World Wildlife Fund for Nature. Looking at all of those things, if it's not going to happen overnight, but every little success, every person that you just give them a little tweak in their brain to think about things in a slightly different way is a positive, I think.
I would say with the bison, that's really good, because I don't remember at all, but I was talking to a complete stranger on the train, and we were talking about conservation, and he was like, "Oh, you're from Canterbury, have you seen the bisons there?" So I feel the bison introduction is really good, because even though there are a fair amount of disagreements, there is a conversation happening about reintroductions.
Absolutely, and it is generally the very local people that have that personal impact, and it's just tweaking that thought process for them to make them just, I mean, you're not going to change everybody's mind. They still might go off grumpy because it's impacted where they walk their dog, or, you know, how they use the bleam, which is fair enough. Nobody likes anything that negatively impacts us, but quite often you do get people just sort of like softening a bit and going, yeah, I see your point. It's like, that's good. And that's good enough. As long as you see the point.
That's a good step.
And like you say, you know, again, that's such a national and international project that it's created a lot of awareness. So, and a lot of positive, you know, publicity for the Wildwood, and for the purpose of doing these projects. So, you know, that's all really positive. And like we were saying, whatever you do, there is always going to be somebody who's going, no, why are we doing that? What's the point in it? Not in my backyard, and, you know, all of that sort of stuff, because you can't please all of the people all the time.
Yeah, I don't think we should as well.
No, I don't think we should either. I think we should ignore them sometimes.
Perfect. Talking about Lynx, as I mentioned, so obviously the talk about Lynx has started to happen a lot with the unlawful reintroduction of Lynx in Scottish Highland, which, to be honest, I shouldn't say this, but it seemed really cool. But then I was like, but that's bad. Like, it should not be happening the way it happened.
Absolutely.
Though it's cool.
yeah. It's like, oh, is it? Oh, but no. Yeah, no.
but yeah, like, I believe I was talking to Jack again after the podcast, and we were like, beavers is good. Most of the people are fine with beavers. Okay, bisons, again, fine. Watervole, sure, why not? But when it comes to lynx, people are very hesitant, especially farmers and people in the countryside. So, what are their general opinions around the area, in the community?
I think everyone's just a bit frightened, to be
Exactly,
honest.
yeah.
I think that's like. I mean, I think that I was just as an example of that fear, if you like. I said I was in Seattle for a while, so we went to the Olympic National Park, fantastic place, and I was like, oh, I might see a bear. Oh, I don't want to see a bear. Oh, I'd love to see a bear. Oh, but I don't want to. So, you know, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
That there
love
is
to
that.
see a bear from a safe distance.
Exactly, like, you know, go and watch it back. No, I mean, I would be amazing to see them in the wild at some point, but there would still be that element of like, God, that's a bear. They're really quite big, and I think that's the problem. Talked about the beavers. You know, there is still quite a lot of kickback from farmers about beavers because of the damming and the causing the floodplain. So you're going to lose farmland, but it's okay to build 1,000 houses on farmland. We won't worry about that. But God forbid we have a beaver flood a plain. Anyway. But I think it is that fear of what is a lynx going to do. Well, we don't. Our largest natural predator in the UK is a badger.
Yeah.
So I think this is the problem we have. That, you know, it's like, and everyone's like, oh, badgers are really scary. They're really vicious, and it's like, yeah, are we going to cull them because of TB? Oh, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is the problem. It's fear, and it is. But the reality is, they're not going to go release 1,000 lynx and just go, right, knock yourselves out, kids. You know, all of these things. And I mean, and if we think about sort of going back, we have done those things before. We released, not predators, but grey squirrels, what
Yeah,
did that do?
yeah,
That decimated. We have learned from not reintroductions, but from introductions, that things have to be done carefully
Yeah.
and with due process. So yeah, releasing fallings into the wild, just going, woohoo, off you go,
was
kids.
the worst idea anyone could do.
Exactly. It's,
What were you thinking?
exactly. Yeah. What were you thinking? That's not going to work.
Because the problem with that is that when you release them unlawfully and unplanned, that actually gets more hate towards reintroduction. That becomes really hard for conservationists to convince people
Absolutely,
again.
exactly, and it's dangerous for the animals because
Yeah.
are they fit? Are they healthy? I mean, one of them died anyway, didn't they? So are they going to be bringing in a disease? Are they, there's all. Are they bringing in a disease? Are they healthy species? What are they going to do? Is it the right area? Things now are done with so much red tape and so much study and feasibility reports and all of that. So I think that's, with the local communities where they're going to be, I think that's what really needs to happen, and it needs to be, because I think it's a very positive thing, because what happens at the moment up in Scotland particularly, where you've got a massive overpopulation of deer,
Yeah.
they have a hunt.
Yeah.
So we do have predators, but they have guns and they're called
Yeah.
humans.
Yeah.
So what is wrong with putting in a natural predator into an area that's actually going to not just kill the deer, take it, but actually add to the environment as well? Because and you bring something in and other things will come in. If you're taking off a few deer, not just once a year at the annual shoot at, Lord what's her whose house or whatever it is, if you've got a natural predator picking off the weak ones, some of the young, as happens all over the world, you're going to get more of a natural balance. And yes, we're never going to have enough lynx up there to be able to control the whole of the deer population, I can't imagine. I mean, I haven't done the feasibility, but I'm literally talking from my own thoughts. But to have some of that happening and allowing an area to get back to a natural equilibrium of too many deer, not enough more link, not enough deers, it gets to that balance like Yellowstone National Park, where those balances happen and things change around that. And to do that, study it. Is it viable? Does it work? Is it helpful? What's it brought in? What's it taken away? Doing all of those things. And that is how things are done these days. So I think to put more of that out there and have that engagement and not just somebody go release more links is the key and is the important thing to get people understand. It's like the bleen, all of these things, whenever you're creating something that is potentially harmful to your way of life or your way of living at that time, it's going to create fear and sort of rejection of that idea. So just having people like you and me who like to talk to people incessantly about these things, I think that's the best way that we can move forward. And that does happen a lot these days. So, and like we said, there is always going to be an element who disagree with you, whatever you're doing, whether you were taking them out or whether you were putting them in. People would agree, people would disagree. So just getting the majority of support is probably the best you're ever going to do, and then having people to talk to, the people that disagree who really know about it and can really explain the benefits of a project is the best way forward. But you're not even going to get to people like that anyway, because some people who are so anti are going to engage with people anyway, and they're still going to be that. But
some
you can
people just
only do
don't
what you
want
can
to hear.
do.
They're like, we don't like it, we don't want to hear
Yes, I
anything.
don't want to hear
It's
about
like,
it. Exactly.
Can't do anything then.
Exactly, and hopefully that is the minority of people.
Yeah.
So you're always going to get a spectrum of like absolutely hate it, absolutely love it, and you've got to try and get everyone sort of like more up there. So you've got a smaller bit down the bottom of like not interested, don't want to know, don't like it, don't want it, never want to hear about it, and the rest going, okay, I see the benefit.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about it, but. And then they'll say, oh, okay, no, I see that that's much, that's worth doing, and wow, that's really fascinating. And then like love it, you're always going to get that spectrum of.
Yeah, that's true. Like with that minority who does not want to listen to any reason as well, I struggle with a lot, because I know it should not bother me, but for example, when it comes to snakes, I'm like, okay, that snake is not venomous. What other concern do you have? It will bite. I'm like, anyone with teeth can bite.
It's like, have you got a dog? Dogs bite.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Have you got a cat? Cats
yeah.
bite. My niece got bitten by our tortoise. The tortoise bit,
Exactly.
and they've
Anything
only
with
got-
teeth can bite.
Exactly. We have to bite. It's how we eat.
I'm like, what more problems do you have with the snake? They're like, I don't know, I just looked at them. I'm like, I can't do anything.
You can't
with
help that. Exactly.
Okay, cool.
It's like,
Just don't kill them.
It's
Fine.
like, go and get bitten by a dog instead. Then off you go. Enjoy life.
Bad.
Yeah, exactly.
So, would love to talk about all the animals, but what we'll do is, I'll tell you the animal that should be introduced, not should be introduced, whatever, and you'll be like, what other challenges if that was to be introduced or has been introduced.
Okay.
If you start with pine martens, because I know reintroduction is happening with them as well.
Yeah.
But what's the one major challenge when it comes to reintroducing them?
I mean, I think the major challenge with all of it is, we've got the habitat loss because we've taken so much away, and the reason that we need healthy populations of these animals as well. So you need to get the sort of spread across the country so that the populations can move around. So I think that habitat loss. I think pine martens are probably. I'm no expert. Suze our expert on pine martens. They're a smaller animal. People don't really know about an awful lot about them. I don't think, either, because they haven't been around for a long time. And I think with those ones, like I said, just getting the habitat and the studies for putting them in the right place is going to be probably the major challenge. Like I say, I'm just talking off the top of my head. Sue's our expert. We've got so many experts here. I'm such a lay person, it's ridiculous. But it's not going to massively impact, like we were saying. That's, I think, always the hurdle is going to be the habitat, loss of habitat, and the remaking of that habitat, getting that habitat viable for those species to re-inhabit of the challenges. And again, it's obviously the larger the animal, the bigger the impact. And I think also, red squirrels with pine martens is a really good mix. They go well together. Grey squirrels and pine martens don't go well together, and it would be lovely to see more red squirrels around. So we need the pine martens for that. So I'm guessing, like I said, I'm definitely no expert on this, but that's probably a slightly, apart from the habitat and getting the habitat right, there isn't as many hurdles with that one as perhaps with some of the other animals that would have a larger impact. Also, they live up in the trees most of the time, so people aren't going to see them. So, so I think there's possibly less than that, but maybe you should do a podcast with Suze about that.
For sure.
Yeah.
But since we're talking about red squirrels again, do you think it's at any point of time it's viable to have red squirrels back? Because I do think about it a lot, and I don't know how you can get rid of grey squirrels at all. Like, they are very much a part of the ecosystem at this point.
Yeah.
But for red squirrels to exist, grey squirrels shouldn't be there. But you can't get rid of grey squirrels. So, do you think it would ever actually feasibly work to release them at a larger scale? Because I know they have some population in Scotland as well.
Yeah.
But what about releasing them in large scale? Do you think a major challenge with red squirrels is grey squirrels? Because I don't think people really come into the picture. People are really glad to see red squirrels.
It's a bit like the pine martens, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're small, cute and fluffy, and they've got teeth,
Yeah.
and they will bite, but they're not a snake, so they're all good.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. I think that would be really difficult. They've got the pockets where they've managed to maintain this, sort of like the Isle of Wight, Anglesey, Cairngorms and other parts of Scotland. But round here, it would be lovely. But I think you would have to probably literally cull every grey squirrel that was ever around. But if we could create a small little habitat that did have enough pine martens that kept the grey squirrel population to a smaller, to a lesser degree to allow, but then you've got the squirrel pox. So, when we've had a red squirrel release, or escape here, as has happened on occasions, we're lucky if we have an escape, apart from the big ones, but if we have escape of a red squirrel, we don't have to alert the authorities because it's a native species. But they don't. We always capture them, and they have to go into quarantine because they can't go straight back in with the red squirrels because of if they've had any contact with a grey squirrel and have contacted squirrel pox. So, they're bigger. They've got the pox. So I think that would be really difficult. And I think we just have to. I think the main thing is to maintain the strongholds and support the strongholds that they have, the areas where they are still. Like the Isle of Wight is perfect because there's only red squirrels there, which is just amazing. and these islands where they can, and these sort of like more remote areas where they've managed to maintain a stronghold. I think that's probably the best we can hope for with them. Yeah, which
What
is a
about
shame.
wildcats?
Wildcats again, with there's lots of projects going on with with potentially catching some of the feral cats of the area, the sort of domesticated but feral cats in the area, and spaying or neutering them to stop the dilution of the DNA of the genetics of the wildcats. Obviously, we're very involved in the Wildcat project and breeding for release of the wildcats. So yeah, I think again, it's a similar sort of thing. I think with that. Again, I'm no expert.
That's good.
But,
That's good.
but I think it's just people like yourself and the people who really get into the nitty gritty of all of these and do all the studies and work to protect them and look at what does need to be done. We've just got to keep going down that road.
What about the people perspective? Like, do people have a negative association with wildcats, or are they good with it?
I don't, not as far as I'm aware, not that I've heard of particularly. Again, they're not much bigger than a domesticated cat, so they're not something to be feared as such. Although they are quite vicious things, but they're not a big predator again. But they're another. We have so few predators in the UK. We really do need to look after the ones that we've got and support them and give them space to have healthy, strong populations, even if it is only in certain areas. I think that's really important. I mean, going to the Lynx, I remember last year there was a study, I can't remember the university, but talking about reintroducing wolves into Scotland.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, and it made me laugh. The BBC reported that the study said it needed around 117, and I thought, well, you could have just said around 120. That's a very specific around amount. Anyway, 117 wolves would have a very positive impact on dealing with the population of deer in Scotland. But I think we'd struggle getting a pack of wolves released in Scotland because of that fear factor again, and what the impacts of the sheep, the livestock around those areas. So but I mean, I'd love it.
I would love to see wolves, but if people are afraid of lynx, then wolves seem to be out of question.
Yeah, and also lynx are a solitary creature, so you wouldn't need, you'd only have one in an area, whereas obviously wolves are pack animals, so you'd come across more than one. So one lynx would be like, oh, a pack of wolves would be like, ah! So,
I'm not sure about how wolves work, but I would think a lynx would be more afraid of people solitary to run away, but wolves in a pack, they can chase you, and that's
but I mean, most wild animals don't really want to be around us. That's the problem. We think that they're all out to get us, and they're really not. They just want to be left alone and just have a little bit of space. And again, sort of through just being here and sort of my own personal thoughts, I think half of the problem with the UK is that it's such a small island. There isn't a lot of space. If you're in Europe and you have got your packs of wolves, and they can be up in the mountains where it's very either zero or low population, small villages, and where people have learnt to live with the animals because there's a space around it. Whereas in the UK, I think that's why our larger predators did get sort of pushed out, basically, because we needed the space that we had for the farming practices, the building of houses, the whatever else we need that space for. And sadly, we always put ourselves first and not always nature. And I think that's what's starting to change, but slowly. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anna. That
Oh,
was
you're
most of it.
welcome.
But before we go, do you have a message of hope for the people? That's my last segment for every guest.
I think so. For me, it is that message of hope is that you can do one small thing in your garden, in your life, that doesn't negatively impact you, but makes a positive impact. So just having a window box of flowers is just, it's not arduous. It's actually going to add to your life as well, because you've got this beautiful little rings of sunshine outside your window in the mornings and the evenings. But that's allowing, that's another place for our pollinators to come and do their work. Obviously recycling's a big thing, but then that's another massive issue of like what happens with it. So just trying to be thoughtful when you shop about, do I need a bag for that? it's obviously lots of positive things have happened with, your bags for lives, but, still people I see all the time buying another bag for life, and you're like, how many bag for lives do you really need? But, if I'm in Sainsbury's, for example, I always try and buy the loose vegetables and just put them straight in a bag. So just little small changes that don't massively impact you can help. And if we all did those little small changes, then things will change. If everyone in Sainsbury's decided that they weren't going to buy tomatoes in a plastic pack, they were going to buy the loose tomatoes, and Sainsbury's would have to start buying more loose tomatoes because that's what's selling. Then we've reduced the plastic. They might come in a plastic box, but at least that's not then 3,000 small little plastic bags. So just little thoughts that you can do that make you feel nice as well. Like, I did something good today. Joining a local conservation charity or a national or an international, just giving a little bit of money each month to a cause. And money's obviously tight at the moment, but it can help. So just what's important to you? What is it that you look at and think, oh, I don't really like that? And then think, what small thing can I do to start making the point that I don't like that. That's how I feel about it. So I make a point, I don't like tomato in plastic bags. I want tomatoes that I just pick up and are loose. Shopping quite often, there's the farm right opposite here, they've got a little tiny farm shop. It's cash only, it's brilliant. I go in there, I talk to the farmers, find out what's been going on with the weather, how things are going with their crops, and I buy as much as I can for my vegetables from them. And it's small things like that. It's not out of my way, it's a little bit out of my way, but not very much out of my way, and it's another nice thing that makes me feel I'm supporting a local farmer. I haven't got carbon miles on, there's no carbon footprint on that because it's come from the field to here. I get to understand a bit more about the hardships of what they're going through. I can tell them what we're doing, and it's just a lovely experience.
That's
and
great.
There's no plastic. It's brilliant. So what's your passion? Find one small thing to make a difference, and if you can use your money to make the difference, i.e., spend it where you value that ethos, those ethics, then do that.
It's a great message.
Thank you.
Before we sign off, do you have any questions for me? Any ending notes? Any thoughts? Any advice for me? Anything you want to say?
I would say I think you're fabulous, and I wish you so much luck in the future. And I would, you just need to get out there and keep spreading this message and doing what you do, because you're so much more knowledgeable than I am. I just enjoy what I do, and I'm so lucky, and you are so passionate about it as well. So I just wish you all the luck and every success.
Thank you so much, Anna.
You're very welcome.
Perfect. Thank you so much for doing this. I really enjoyed it.
No problem. Me too. Thank you.
Thank you.